Hey, welcome back. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about the topic on real world assets tokenization. As we're now immersed into the new year and the digital assets framework regulation, which I believe the incoming Trump administration is going to establish in the US, and this in no doubt will have an effect on other markets around the world who are investing into the space. This is going to provide clarity and liquidity into digital assets projects. In other words, real world assets tokenization, tokenizing physical assets, so tokenizing everything onto the blockchain. Now, I want to share with you a couple of short clips from Larry Fink, who is the CEO of Blackrock, who is the largest asset manager in the world, right? It has just under $12 trillion of assets under management, AUM. So this is significant from what he has to say, where he explains to the investing community why real world assets tokenization is indeed going to be the big wave in blockchain technology, bring it into the financial mainstream. So what he has to say should be taken as stone, right? Because whatever he says, it has that weight, particularly in the financial industry space. So enjoy the two clips, and then I'll round off my personal feed and takeaways towards the end of this episode.
I would also say on the beginnings of a ETF Bitcoin, we believe ETFs are a technology no different than Bitcoin was a technology for asset storage. We believe the next step going forward will be the tokenization of financial assets. And that means every stock, every bond will have its own, basically, CUSIP. It'll be on one general ledger. Every investor, you and I, will have our own number, our own identification. We could rid ourselves of all issues around illicit activities about bonds and stocks and digital by having a tokenization. But the most importantly thing, we can customize strategies through tokenization that fits every individual. We would have instantaneous settlement. Think about all the costs of settling bonds and stocks. But if you had a tokenization, everything would be immediate because it's just a line item. And so we believe this is a technological transformation for financial assets. I believe if you want to talk about voting and voting choice and all the things, if we know every moment who is the owner of that stock and it's now time to vote, every individual who has ownership is identified and they can vote their own shares.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in an ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Well, I came across this article because I just want to give you more information as to why I genuinely think that real world assets is really going to be the next best thing. So you can see I've highlighted just a few lines from this article where it says Boston Consulting Group is like one of the major strategy consulting firms, global firms. They made an interesting remark that they're estimating the total addressable market size of tokenized real world assets is going to be the $16 trillion market by 2030. Now, part of that is also tokenizing fixed income instruments, so things like bonds. As part of that estimate, they could easily envisage a $600 billion market just for tokenizing fixed income instruments in the financial markets by 2030. So this really gives increased confidence, or should actually give increased confidence to the investment community out there that indeed the real world assets tokenization is going to play an important part in the democratization and opening up the window of opportunity for all types of investors. So this is something that everyone should really take sight of. And then finally, I'd like to round off this episode on just a few use cases where there's been some marquee announcements on the major deals within the real world assets tokenization space. So I made a video quite some time ago, which I encourage you to look into my channel. If you subscribe to it, you would certainly be able to have a glimpse of that, where I've actually discussed a few of these important use cases, achievements or deals. So the first one is, one thing is actually tokenizing financial instruments, so things like stocks and bonds within the fixed income space. But also we shouldn't just stop there. And in fact, it's not being stopped there. The real assets tokenization has the potential to tokenize more things, more physical assets, whether it's within the financial market space or indeed within the real estate market, which is what this use case talks about, or things like gold, precious metals, even tokenizing football teams, arts and collectibles. You can certainly have those tokenized and have representations of those physical assets onto the blockchain so people can invest and trade on those tokenized assets. So this is the appeal of real assets tokenizations. It has the ability to tokenize every single physical asset that you can think of that has an economic and financial value attached. So this is the premise, right? This is what makes it so unique, is it would enable every type of investor to have fractional ownership of these physical assets on the blockchain. So the first one is to do with this tokenized real estate deal in the Dubai in the Middle East, where the fintech group called Mantra has reached a deal with the Dubai-based realtor to tokenize $500 million of the Dubai real estate. So this is one of the most talked about marquee achievements in terms of real assets tokenization of real estate. This is the top one. And obviously this is going to open up some very interesting deals I expect into the medium long term, where this will be rolled out into other lucrative, more premium type real estate, which would make sense to have those tokenized, at least in the first tranche, onto the blockchain. So I'll be very keen to see what other deals that may come out from this. Then if I move on to the next one, which I think is also an appeal, is things like oracles. So things like providing oracle feeds of real life information. Let's take the example of what is the exchange rate of the US dollar in comparison to other exchanges. Well, we don't have that information natively within the decentralized or blockchain world. So the obvious need is to have oracle feeds to provide this real life information onto the blockchain. And this is dealt with decentralized oracles. So one of the main providers in this space is Chainlink. It certainly helps provide that real life information within the blockchain itself, in the decentralized part of the real world asset tokenization space. So this is going to grow in terms of market value in the medium and to the long term. And particularly in the financial markets arena, where there is obviously need to provide that analytical data through these oracles onto the physical assets that are being tokenized on the blockchain. And lastly, I want to round off on one of the top fintechs in the RWA space at the moment, which is Ondo Finance. So this fintech group have begun tokenizing the fixed income instruments, so things like bonds. So in this case, they've tokenized the US Treasury onto the blockchain because they've obviously found the need to plug that gap and to provide these readily available tokenized instruments for investors and traders out there, rather than just relying on operating these in the traditional financial sense. So these are three examples of where we are seeing currently real world assets tokenization up and running. And like I said before, the prospect of this is set to continue to grow. It's covering different types of industries, use cases, not just within the financial market space, but also in real estate, as I've just shown you here. Also things like arts and collectibles, also things like premium real estate. Also you can expand this to cover football teams or lucrative items, investment items. You can tokenize those certainly. onto the blockchain. So you can see there's a huge raft of other opportunities. So for those investors out there, you should really do your research and dig deep into this RWA space, because as I just mentioned at the start of this episode, the Boston Consulting Group, they've done the legwork where they made a multi-trillion-dollar estimate of the entirety of the RWA industry by 2030. And if you have the likes of Larry Fink, who is the largest asset manager in the world, championing real-world assets tokenization as that next big wave in terms of bringing the blockchain into the mainstream, well, you should certainly take that advice very seriously. Why not invest a part of your portfolio onto this next big wave of real-world asset tokenization? So if you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to hit the like button, share this video, and to please subscribe to my channel, as I regularly post some interesting videos such as these, anything to do with Bitcoin, blockchain technology, and the future of finance. So until next time,